If I could only think of how to cut you away, I wouldn't be so frightened or scared to be enlightened. It's kind of difficult to keep my mind on a day that I didn't really mind it. It's in my face, I'll find it. The fields of colors bleeding and it's so far from home. The thoughts keep coming forward, I wish I wasn't so bored. Does it really matter if I'm dying alone? I often try to fake it, what's in my face I'll take it. I'm trying not to break it, the timing it was so right. The heaviness is so light, no more or less is coming. The substance stand for something, you keep speaking easy, you really do believe me. Please tell me where you're going. I hope my fear is showing, 'cause I'll never ever see you again. If I could have the heart to take a knife to my skin, I'd carve your name for comfort, a feeling there of some sort. It's been a small eternity tormenting within, so hard to keep it inside. My mouth waits for the surprise, staring out my window at a bird on the line. I wish I could get cable, I wish that I was able to filter all the brainwaves that will enter my mind. If I didn't have to see it, I just don't think I need it. If I was pierced, I'd bleed it. Faster is the placement to fill your mental basement. Enough room for your demons.
Lord Satan from the netherworld, ruler of the damned and eternal king of hell. Even I, the master of deceit, can only stomach so much bullshit from the mainstream media and indie grifters. That's why I tune in to Morning Extra with Uncle Warren, because he eliminates my competition, and also because I know I'm gonna see that motherfucker soon.
Deo, Deo.
Baby's got a burger and a shooter and that shit just won't go down. Baby's got a burger and a shooter and that shit just won't go down. Corrosion to her thighs, erosion of her pride. Baby's got a shooter, baby's got corrosion now, baby's got it.
Good morning. Look at that. I knew I was going to do this. Hang on a second. I got to get a little closer. I feel like I'm like way back there. Hello. Good evening. It is Friday, December 27th. Is that right? 2 days after Kruma. And going into the home stretch of the holidays. I'm not quite sure when Hanukkah ends, where Kwanzaa begins, or any of that. I know New Year's Eve is coming up Tuesday evening, and then New Year's Day will be Wednesday. So there should be some doings next week for that. If you missed the Festivus show this Monday, it was fun. My buddy Game.Film came on there. My buddy Ed Heller was on there, and Chuck, the intergalactic alien there, he was on there, and he scared some children, which was part of the script. Yeah, and our buddy Franco was on there too. It was good. So this is for our buddy Fred Edwards. See, we do have Entenmann's. I don't know if you could see that, but that says Entenmann's on there. Baker's Delight. Just like me. I'm a Baker's Delight. Oh, who called me kitten and meant it? Okay. What's going on here? Oh, there we go. All right. Yeah, so it's Friday. We're going into the weekend, and next week will be 2025. I know you're all excited about that. Each and every one of you is looking forward to the new year and all the treats and joys and delights that will be beholden onto you. So who's here? We got Kate's here. She just popped in. Good morning to you, Kate. As we said, Chuck's Intergalactic UFO Show. He's here too. And Fingerman. He's good. Good to see you. Hellos to you too. Steve Wolfbrant. Good to see you. And Vera, good to see you, Vera. Hi. I like to see you all up in this chat here. Vera's a very sweet person. We enjoy Vera's company, as do Global. Global, what's up, buddy? You need to update your decoder ring, as should you all. Someone called me kitten. No one's called me kitten in years. I wish they did. I am a kitten. I'll get on my back and let you rub my belly. Fred Edward in the house. Like we said, we was doing the Entenmann's bit there. That was nice. That's always a sweet bit. Because it's a thing. It's a sweet thing. Who else is it? Of course, Game.Film off the top there. Said last day of work, then off for a few days. All right. That's right. Heading into the home stretch. A lot of people off next few days for the New Year's. So big plans, everybody. Anybody doing anything wild and exciting for New Year's Eve? I'll be out casing joints through Monday, and then on Tuesday it's go time. So while you're at parties, I'm going to be in your house stealing stuff, taking all your goodies, because you don't deserve them. You haven't been good enough. If you were good enough, you'd appreciate those goodies that I'm stealing more, and you'd stay home and protect them. But no, you can't do that, can you? You a-holes. What else is going on? So yeah, and then Christmas we did kind of some of the top stories of the year chronologically. So hopefully World War III isn't on the top of the list as we go into next week, or any week, I should say. So yeah, so like we said, New Year's Day is going to be Wednesday. You'll be holding your Save Stanley Park banner until 3 p.m. New Year's Eve. Is that right, Kate? Is Stanley Park over there by your neck of the woods? Is that right? Okay. Well, I hope you save it. I hope you save Stanley Park, Kate. Kate is a rock star in the Pacific Northwest. So another rock star is our buddy Chanda, who is dealing with lung cancer, going through treatments for that. And as we know, the healthcare system in America sucks. And it's expensive on top of it. So if you can help out, you can donate to the link down below in the description. Or if you can't donate, if you can share out the link, that helps too. And Shanna appreciates it, I'm sure, as well. As all her pals out here want her to have a speedy recovery. So many new technologies with cancer treatment these days. So, it's not like the old days. Not even like it was 25 years ago. Just light years better than that. So we just got to, we just gotta get health care to everybody. That's the thing. It shouldn't be some sort of, prize or grand privilege that, oh, look at you. You're getting quality health care. Ooh, fancy pants. No, that shouldn't be a thing. It shouldn't be some sort of elitist thing. It should be everybody should get fancy pants health care. And by fancy pants, I mean quality health care and preventative health care too, You could go to your doctor for checkups and make sure that your body's running right? Because even in a capitalist society, you would think capitalists would want productive workers, and if they want to be the most productive, they would want them to be the most healthy. If you're thinking along those lines as a capitalist, right? But no, all you're thinking of is greed, money, greed, money, greed, money, greed, money, and everything else be damned. All right, off the soapbox there. We've got some stories to get to today for this Friday. Stop the logging. That's what they're doing. They're trying to log Stanley Park. Are you gonna chain yourself to a tree, Kate? Don't do it if they got bulldozers or something. But if you have a Princess Leia outfit, please chain yourself to a tree and then send me the GPS coordinates so I can come save you. Wink, 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 wink. Sorry, I'm being silly cakes this morning. All right, let's get to it. So, of course, everything starts in Israel because of course, this time they're attacking the one hospital left in North Gaza. Israeli soldiers storm Gaza's Kamal Adwan hospital, force out semi-naked medics and patients because, getting them out of the one hospital isn't bad enough. You have to humiliate them too, because that's what they're doing. Israeli soldiers stormed Gaza's last functioning hospital today and forced semi-naked Palestinian medics and patients to leave on foot to an unknown destination, according to videos and eyewitness testimony shared with Middle East Eye. That's where this story is coming from. According to one video sent to MEE, several Israeli tanks could be seen stationed outside the bombed-out Canal Adwan hospital in Beit Lahia, whilst dozens of men stripped to their underwear were being directed to an area off-screen. Islam Ahmad, a local journalist and eyewitness to the attack, said communication had been cut off with hospital staff hours before Israeli forces stormed the facility. He told MEE that Israeli forces had been attacking the hospital since sunrise, with operating rooms, laboratories, and other emergency departments targeted by strikes and set ablaze, of course, because Hamas, it's all Hamas. He added that there were growing fears for the safety of medics such as Hossam Abu Safia, the head of the hospital, due to Israel's deliberate targeting of healthcare workers. Meanwhile, a medical worker inside the hospital said that there was a palpable fear inside the main building after Israeli forces switched off oxygen supplies and began forcing medics and patients out in the streets. The weather in Gaza has plummeted in recent days, with at least 4 infants dying of hypothermia due to Israel's blockade on food, water, and essential winter supplies. 4 infants dying of frostbite. They froze to death. Earlier footage sent to Middle East Eye showed an Israeli quadcopter dropping explosives on a section of the facility. Whilst cries for help rang out, it was unclear if there were any fatalities in today's attacks. The assault on Canal Adwan comes a day after 50 Palestinians were killed in an airstrike on a building in the hospital's grounds. At least 5 medical staff were killed in Thursday's attack, along with their wives, parents, and children. Canal Adwan has been under a suffocating Israeli siege for more than 2 months, receiving little to no aid, medicine, food, or fuel since Israel intensified its blockade on northern parts of the enclave. The other 2 hospitals, the Indonesian hospital and the Al-Ada hospital, ceased operations weeks ago due to ongoing Israeli attacks. Canal Adwan remained operational at minimal capacity, offering life-saving services to newborn infants in neonatal intensive care units and other patients in ICUs. The Israeli military intensified its offensive on northern Gaza on October 5th after a controversial proposal named the General's Plan, as we told you about before, was presented to the Israeli government. The plan said areas north of the Netzarim corridor, which cuts Gaza in 2, should be emptied of its residents so Israel could establish a closed military zone. According to the plan, anyone who chose to stay would be considered a Hamas operative and could be killed. And that means hospitals too, because hospitals can't leave. So the hospital must be Hamas too. Since launching the plan, Israeli forces have been accused of exacerbating starvation and malnutrition to ethnically cleanse Palestinians, with Oxfam reporting earlier this week that only 12 aid trucks had made it into northern Gaza this month. Yeah, so the Israeli military has also been accused of deliberately destroying Gaza's health system through constant attacks on hospitals, ambulances, and doctors since October 7th last year. Israeli forces previously raided the Strip's 2 largest hospitals, the Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza City and Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis, destroying them in the process. They've also killed more than 1,150 health workers and detained 300 since the war on Gaza began. Last month, the International Criminal Court, as you know, issued arrest warrants for Bibi and the gang, Yoav Galant, and some Palestinians, some Hamas leaders, I should say. Yeah, so things looking just as bleak as the year is coming to an end over there in Gaza. And that poor hospital administrator, the guy that's running the place, man, he's still trying. So what's up, John? Good to see you. Good morning. Good. I know, Con. Yeah, it was it's getting pretty crazy over there. And of course, they've been doing this before. The Israeli MPs, this guy Itamar Ben-Gvir. So so they do this again. Israeli minister storms Al-Aqsa Mosque in East Jerusalem. Like I said, they've done this again before. Now they're doing it again because they're fucking assholes. Israel's far-right national security minister Itamar Ben-Gvir forced his way into the Al-Aqsa Mosque complex in occupied East Jerusalem yesterday, marking a new provocation amid the ongoing war on Gaza. That's Turkish paper Anadolu agency reports. Ben-Gvir entered the site under heavy police protection and toured the mosque's courtyard. That's according to an official with the Jordan-run Islamic Endowments Department in Jerusalem. This is the extremist minister's fifth visit to the Flashpoint complex since he joined Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government in 2022. It coincided with the week-long Jewish holiday of Hanukkah, which started on Thursday. Oh, so this is the second day of Hanukkah. Okay, very good. The National Democratic Alliance and Israeli Arab Party condemned Ben-Gvir's tour of the Al-Aqsa complex as a deliberate provocation to the sentiments of Arabs and Muslims around all the world. The party called on Palestinians to intensify their presence and visits to the mosque. Since 2003, Israel has allowed illegal settlers into the Flashpoint compound on an almost daily basis, with the exception of Fridays and Saturdays. Al-Aqsa Mosque is the world's third holiest site for Muslims. Jews call the area the Temple Mount, saying it was the site of two Jewish temples in ancient times. Israel occupied East Jerusalem, where Al-Aqsa is located, during the 1967 Arab-Israeli War. It annexed the entire city in 1980 in a move never recognized by the international community. They just took it. I said, mine now, bitches. So yeah. And it turns out Israel has been playing fast and loose with the rules of engagement. And so, I mean, like I said, this is not news to any of us. We knew they were shooting civilians and children and all this stuff, all these innocent people, blowing up aid trucks and stuff because, and they were calling them, oh, they had weapons. Oh, they were, sympathizers, that sort of thing, So now they have a report saying as much, confirming what we've been saying this whole time. So Israeli military loosened rules of engagement at start of Gaza war. That's according to a New York Times report. So when the mainstream media is finally calling it out, something is up. The Israeli military loosened its rules of engagement at the start of the Gaza war to enable commanders to order attacks on targets despite a heightened risk of civilian casualties, the New York Times reported yesterday. Immediately after the October 7, 2023 attack on Israel by groups of Hamas-led gunmen, the military granted mid-ranking officers the authority to strike a wide range of military targets where up to 20 civilians risked being killed, the newspapers said. The order meant, for example, that the military could target rank-and-file militants while they were at home surrounded by relatives and neighbors instead of only when they were alone outside, the newspapers said. It said the report was based on interviews with more than 100 soldiers and officials, including more than 25 people who helped select and vet targets. The Israeli military did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Gee, I wonder why. New York Times said the military acknowledged that the rules of engagement had changed after October 7th, but said its forces had, quote, consistently been employing means and methods that adhere to the rules of law. Right. The Hamas-led attack on communities around the Gaza Strip on October 7th killed 1,200 people and saw more than 250 taken as hostages into Gaza. That's according to Israeli tallies. Israel's ground and air campaign in response has killed more than 45,000 and wounded more than 107. In addition to raising the number of civilian casualties that could be risked in a single attack, the New York Times said the military removed a limit on the cumulative number of civilians that its strikes could put at risk each day. On a few occasions, the military high command approved strikes that they knew would put as many as 100 civilian lives at risk, according to the paper. It said the military, quote, often relied on a crude statistical model to assess the risk of civilian harm, unquote, mainly depending on estimates of cell phone usage rather than extensive surveillance of a single building. From November 2023 onward, the rules were tightened, including by halving, cutting in half the number of civilian casualties that could be risked in attacks on low-level targets. It added that the rules remain far more permissive than before the war. So they didn't give a shit, right? The Hannibal directive, they were the ones that they killed the most people on October 7th was the IDF. You could see it. You could see it in the cars and stuff. The hang gliders couldn't do that shit. But Apache helicopters with weapons could. Oh yeah. Hey, what's up, Bella? Good to see you. Yeah, Finger Man, it had to go, man. The Santa Claus bit was over, and this part especially was driving me crazy. Kept tickling me like I was a cutie pie. You quit it, you naughty mustache. So it had to go. But it'll get cold. It's going to stay cold, so it'll be back in some fashion. And of course the U.S., it's self-defense. Look, they're just trying to defend themselves. Yeah, by killing all these innocent people. And they were getting away with it, too, until people started protesting. And that's when they started censoring people with their cell phones. And now they're trying to take TikTok away, all that stuff. So, as if BB doesn't have enough trouble himself. That sad Mr. Potato-looking motherfucker. Now his wife's in the mix. Israeli Attorney General orders probe into report that alleged Netanyahu's wife harassed opponents. I believe this is the lady right here. She kind of looks like David Icke a little bit. Like David Icke. Yeah, even with the hair. And there's BB there like, oh, I wish I was dead. Israel's Attorney General has ordered police to open an investigation into Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's wife on suspicion of harassing political opponents and witnesses in the Israeli leader's corruption trial. The Israeli Justice Ministry made the announcement in a terse message late Thursday, saying the investigation would focus on the findings of a recent report by the UVDA investigative program into Sarah Netanyahu. The program uncovered a trove of WhatsApp messages in which Mrs. Netanyahu appears to instruct a former aide to organize protests against political opponents and to intimidate Hadass Klein, a key witness in the trial. Oh, you nasty lady. The announcement did not mention Mrs. Netanyahu by name, and the Justice Ministry declined further comment. But in a video released earlier yesterday, Netanyahu listed what he said were the many kind and charitable acts by his wife and blasted the UVDA report as lies. It was the latest in a long line of legal troubles for the Netanyahus, highlighted by the Prime Minister's ongoing corruption trial. Netanyahu is charged with fraud, breach of trust, and accepting bribes in a series of cases alleging he exchanged favors with powerful media moguls and wealthy associates. Netanyahu denies the charges and said he is the victim of circumstance. Wait a minute. He said he's the victim of a witch hunt by overzealous prosecutors, police, And the media. I know, right? They're all victims. Look at it. Let's look at these victims again. Oh, you poor victims. You're such victims. Such victims. Please don't cry for them. They'll be all right. Yeah, so we're heading into Syria, says Israel, and nobody's really stopping them. Not really. Not the new ruling government. They're just like, we don't want any problems with Israel. We're sure they're very nice people. We just want to be, we just want to be nice. We sent them over some nice matzo ball soup. They seem to like that very much. This is from antiwar.com. Very good site. I cannot recommend them enough for various sources of independent news that they have. Sometimes they link to the mainstream media, but usually it's for like some story that's like, they try to stay away from the bias. So this is from Jason Ditz. Midway through ceasefire, Israeli army moves deeper into southern Lebanon. Right? Who is this guy? Tim Pool? Oh, you mean this? Oh, right. No. I'm actually at your mom's house, buried my face in her legs there, Auntie. This is I'm a robot taking his place for today. Your mom jokes. Thursday marks the 30-day mark in the 60-day ceasefire, quote-unquote ceasefire, between Lebanon and Israel. While plainly obvious that IDF military operations never really ceased, Israel is now openly talking about staying in Lebanon past the 60-day pullout deadline. Of course they are. Even more concerning, Israel has pushed the offensive deeper into southern Lebanon, seizing the town of Wadi al-Hujayr and firing rounds of machine gun fire as troops advance, forcing the civilian population to flee once again. Wadi al-Hujayr is nearly 5 miles over the blue line, deeper than Israel's invasion actually penetrated during the war that was supposed to end with last month's ceasefire. The town also lies along the Litani River, or Litani River, beyond which Hezbollah was to remove its forces after the war. But travel in occupied southern Lebanon is a difficult business, even 30 days into the ceasefire, as Israel seems to attack anything and everything trying to return to the towns and villages that were seized. The roads around Wadi al-Hujayr have now been closed by Lebanese officials in an effort to keep the civilian population safely away from continuing Israeli incursions. Multiple voices have expressed growing concern about Israel's looming failure to withdraw from Lebanon and its continued firing on Lebanese territory despite the nominal ceasefire. UNIFIL issued a statement yesterday about the continuing damage Israel is causing in residential and agricultural areas and on road networks throughout southern Lebanon. Israel has issued no statement on the new incursions, nor any official clarification surrounding media reports that it's looking to stay beyond next month's deadline. Since the U.S. was meant to be the guarantor of the ceasefire, it was expected that the U.S. would say something about the hundreds of Israeli violations. So far, however, crickets, of course, because, it's crickets. The U.S. has not even broached the subject. The U.S. seems to consider the ceasefire announcement all it was prepared to do, and in actuality, all it is likely ever to do. Yes. So, yeah, you can forget this, the ceasefire there. It never was. There never was a ceasefire, right? So what was supposed to happen was, I think, the Lebanese army was supposed to handle Hezbollah if they did something bad, right? And Israel was supposed to be getting their shit out of there in 60 days, and all they've been doing is just blowing the shit out of Hezbollah. It's fucked up for reals. So big news over for Yemen as Israeli has been striking. They've been striking back and forth. Yemen has been sending hypersonic missiles that way. So so this is now Yemen is not letting up at all against Israel. Massive Israeli attacks pummel Yemen's main airport. Sana'a pledges response in kind. Sana'a being the capital there. The Israeli army carried out a large attack against Yemen on the afternoon of December 26th. That would be yesterday. Coinciding with a speech by the leader of the Ansarallah resistance movement, Abdul Malik al-Houthi. Images on social media showed large clouds of smoke as a result of the Israeli strikes on the capital, Sana'a, and the western port city of Hodeidah. And there's some pictures right there, some boom booms. An Israeli army spokesman said the Air Force struck terrorist targets of the Houthi terrorist regime at Sana'a International Airport, as well as the ports of Hodeidah, Al-Salif, and Ras Kantib on Yemen's western coast. Power stations were hit as a result. According to Al Mayadeen's correspondent in Yemen, the pilot of a UN plane was injured, and 2 airport employees were killed by the Israeli attack. We'll have more on that UN plane in just a second. And 2 airport employees were killed by the Israeli attack, which comes in response to a recent string of direct Yemeni missile and drone strikes against Tel Aviv and elsewhere in Israel. As we were about to board our flight from Sana'a about 2 hours ago, the airport came under aerial bombardment. One of our plane's crew members was injured. At least 2 people were reported killed at the airport. The air traffic control tower, the departure lounge just a few meters from where we were, and the runway was damaged, said the Director General of the UN World Health Organization. We will need to wait for the damage to be repaired before we can leave, he said. The strikes were approved by Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz and Thumb Dick Benjamin Netanyahu, but not the cabinet, according to Israel's Broadcasting Corporation. Targeting Sana'a International Airport and other civilian infrastructure is a Zionist crime against all the Yemeni people. This is the habit of this criminal enemy, the killer of millions of the Palestinian people and the perpetrator of genocide in Gaza, stated Ansarallah spokesman Mohammed Abdel Salam. If the Zionist enemy thinks that its crimes will stop Yemen from supporting Gaza, it is delusional, and Yemen will not abandon its religious and humanitarian principles, God willing, he added. A Yemeni drone exploded in Ashkelon on the evening of Christmas, with video footage showing the moment of impact. Yemen's armed forces, the YAF, which is merged with the Ansarallah movement, announced drone attacks on both Ashkelon and Tel Aviv. Over 20 Israelis were injured while running to shelters early on Christmas Eve after a Yemeni projectile targeted Tel Aviv, according to Israel's ambulance service. This came after Yemen launched ballistic missile attacks on Tel Aviv on the 19th and the 21st as well. So they've been going back and forth, and this also involves the like we said, the director. Where was he? Yes, the UN World Health Organization Director General. He was meters away from an Israeli attack on the Yemen airport, so he was there. A wave of Israeli air attacks, like we said, hits Yemen's main airport, just as the World Health Organization's Director General said he was about to board a flight there, wounding one of the UN's plane crew, the WHO chief said. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said in a post on a tweeters that he was just meters away from the attack at the airport yesterday. So he said, that we were under bombardment. One of our plane's crew members was injured. There was no immediate comment from Israel on the incident. The Houthi-controlled Saba news agency said that 3 people were killed in the strikes on the airport, and another three were killed as Israel hit the key port city of Hodeidah. So this talks more about them hitting their infrastructure there. Al Jazeera's Gabriel Elizondo, reporting from UN headquarters in New York, said Ghebreyesus and his staff were evacuated out to safety shortly after the attack on the airport. UN tells us all their staff are accounted for, but make no mistake about it, this was a very close call, Elizondo said. UN spokesperson Stephanie Tremblay told reporters that the delegation had just concluded discussions on the humanitarian situation in Yemen and were negotiating the release of detained UN staff members. The Secretary General emphasizes that international law, including humanitarian law as applicable, must be respected at all times, and he appeals to all to respect and protect civilians and civilian infrastructure. Humanitarian relief personnel also must not be targeted and must be respected and protected at all times. Yeah, you would think, but not there. Not there. So the Houthis are a force over there. That's why they've been, they have the hypersonic missiles that they've been laying on Israel. Right. And they've been taken it to the U.S. forces there in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden there. As a U.S. aircraft carrier forced to retreat in Red Sea after attack, Yemen's Houthis say they got another one. Yemen's Houthi group claimed yesterday to force a U.S. aircraft carrier to retreat in the Red Sea after a drone strike. The local 26 September website, an outlet linked to the Houthi-run Defense Ministry, said the U.S. aircraft carrier USS Harry S. Truman was forced to retreat northward in the Red Sea towards Egypt's Suez Canal after an attack earlier this week. The Yemeni website said that satellite imagery showed the U.S. carrier moving away from Yemeni waters. There was no immediate U.S. comment on the Houthi claim. On Sunday, the Houthis said that they had thwarted what they called a U.S.-British attack on Yemen, claiming to have shot down an F-18 fighter jet after an attack on the USS Harry Truman and accompanying destroyers. CENTCOM, for its part, confirmed that the F-18 fighter jet was downed over the Red Sea by friendly fire, the friendly fire being the friendly Houthis. The Houthis have targeted Israeli cargo ships or those associated with Tel Aviv in the Red Sea with missiles and drones in a show of support with the Gaza Strip. So they have continued to scare off these aircraft carriers of the U.S. that are floating through there too. So I think if Yemen is contained, then there's a lot more heinous shit that's going on in the Middle East, in Israel, that is. So that's what's going on there. Meanwhile, in Syria, a lot of people are starting to head back now that Assad is gone. So over 50,000 Syrians have returned home from neighboring countries over the last 3 weeks, according to the UN. The UN said yesterday that the number of refugees returning to Syria from neighboring countries in the 3 weeks following the fall of the Assad regime has exceeded 50,000. The UN High Commissioner for Refugees, Filippo Grandi, shared on the tweeters that the number of Syrian refugees returning to their homes is slowly increasing. Material conditions inside Syria remain dire. More humanitarian and recovery assistance must be delivered to returnees and all those in need, Grandi said. Bashar Assad, Syria's leader for nearly 25 years, fled to Russia after anti-regime groups took control of the capital, Damascus, on December 8th, ending the Ba'ath Party's regime, which had been in power since 1963. That includes his dad, who was leading before he was. The takeover came after HTS fighters captured key cities in a lightning round. Every time they say lightning offensive, I always say, in the lightning round. That's right, where the money is doubled. That lasted for 2 weeks. So now people are starting to head that way. I think the airports are starting to open up there, and now more people are starting to come back in. Now, this is the editorial part of this story. I probably wouldn't go back home just yet. It's kind of like getting a video game, but it's brand new, and you're like, oh, right, this has been waiting for this for so long, but it's got the bugs. So they have to get the game day, the day one patch, so that sorry, that's a video game thing. Anyway, they should probably iron out some shit before they start inviting people to come back, is all I'm saying. But yeah. So in Kazakhstan, we didn't really do the news on Wednesday, so we missed this as part of this. Actually, this was maybe this was yesterday. Oh, this was yesterday. Yeah. So Azerbaijan mourns 38 killed in a plane crash in Kazakhstan. So 38 people. Azerbaijan held a national day of mourning Thursday after a passenger jet from the flag carrier crashed in Kazakhstan, killing 38 people, as experts pointed to apparent shrapnel damage on the wreckage as evidence of a possible missile explosion. The Embraer 190 aircraft was supposed to fly northwest from the Azerbaijani capital Baku to the city of Grozny in Chechnya in southern Russia, but instead diverted far off course across the Caspian Sea. It crashed Wednesday near the city of Aktau in Kazakhstan. An investigation is underway, but some aviation and military experts said the plane may have been accidentally shot by Russian air defense systems as it was flying in an area where Ukrainian drone activity had been reported. Kazakh Senate Speaker Mornin Ashimbayev condemned speculation about what happened. He said it was not possible to say what may have damaged the plane. He was quoted by Russian news agency TASS as saying. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov also said we need to await the end of the investigation. But Russian military expert Yuri Podolyaka said holes seen in the wreckage of the plane were similar to the damage caused by an anti-aircraft missile system. Everything points to that, he wrote. Gerard Legaffre, a former expert at France's BEA Air Accident Investigation Agency, Legaffre, also said there appeared to be a lot of shrapnel damage on the wreckage. He said the damage was reminiscent of Malaysia Airlines Flight MH17, which was downed with a surface-to-air missile by Russia-backed rebels over eastern Ukraine in 2014. Azerbaijan Airlines initially said the plane flew through a flock of birds before withdrawing the statement. The airline reported that 67 people were on board the jet, 62 passengers, and 5 crew members. Kazakh Deputy Prime Minister Kanat Bozumbayev said that 38 people had been killed, while the Kazakh Emergency Situations Ministry reported 29 survivors, including 3 children, have been hospitalized. Jalil Aliyev, the father of flight attendant Hokume Aliyev, told news agency AFP that this was supposed to have been her last flight before starting a job as a lawyer for the airline. Of course, why did her young life have to end so tragically, the man said in a trembling voice before hanging up the phone. 11 of the injured are in intensive care. Azerbaijan state news agency Azertak reported that 12 of the survivors were being flown to Azerbaijan. A plane carrying 9 injured Russian nationals, including a child, also arrived at Zhukovsky Airport in the Moscow region yesterday, Russia's Emergency Situations Ministry said. Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev declared yesterday a day of mourning and canceled a planned visit to Russia for an informal summit of the Commonwealth of Independent States, CIS, a grouping of former Soviet nations. Aliyev's office said the president ordered the prompt initiation of urgent measures to investigate the causes of the disaster. I extend my condolences to the families of those who lost their lives in the crash and wish a speedy recovery to the injured, Aliyev said in a social media post on Christmas. So the flight radar website showed the plane deviating from its normal route, crossing the Caspian Sea, and then circling over the area where it eventually crashed near Akto, an oil and gas hub on the eastern shore of the sea. Azerbaijan Airlines said the plane made an emergency landing around 3 kilometers from Akto. Kazakhstan said the plane was carrying 37 Azerbaijani passengers, 6 Kazakhs, and 3 Kyrgyz, and 16 Russians. Kyrgyz? A Kazakh woman told a local branch of Radio Free Europe she was near where the plane crashed and rushed to the site to help survivors. They were covered in blood. They were crying. They were calling for help, said the woman who gave her name as Elmira. She said they saved some teenagers. So, yeah. So then it goes on here about Putin had a phone conversation with Aliyev and expressed his condolences, as did Chinese President Xi Jinping. So that was a plane crash over there. You have to wonder about plane crashes too, and helicopter crashes, because of what happened with the Iranian president. Was it last year? Did he die last year, I think? I'm not quite sure. I wouldn't be flying though. I'd be like, man, I'll drive. Give me a bus. Give me a party bus, man. Give me like Willie Nelson's party bus. So this is also the time, I can't believe it's been 20 years. We talked a little bit about this last week about preparations for this, but the 20-year anniversary of the tsunamis that killed hundreds of thousands of people. As tears, prayers, as Asia mourns tsunami dead 20 years on. So, tearful mourners prayed on Thursday as ceremonies were held across Asia to remember the 220,000 people who were killed 2 decades ago when a tsunami hit coastlines around the Indian Ocean in one of the world's worst natural disasters. A 9.1 magnitude earthquake off Indonesia's western tip on December 26, 2004 generated a series of waves as high as 98 feet that pummeled the coastline of 14 countries from Indonesia to Somalia. In Indonesia's Aceh province, where more than 100,000 people were killed, a siren rang out at the Baitaranam Grand Mosque to kick off a series of memorials around the region, including in Sri Lanka, India, and Thailand, which the tsunami hit hours later. People recounted harrowing tales of horror and miraculous survival as giant waves swept in without warning, carrying debris, including cars, and destroying buildings in its wake. If you've seen those videos, they're just, Jesus, ugh. I thought it was doomsday, said Hasnawati, a 54-year-old teacher at the Indonesian mosque that was damaged by the tsunami on a Sunday morning, where our family were all laughing together. Suddenly a disaster struck and everything's gone. I can't describe it with words. At Aceh's siren mass grave, where around 46,000 people were buried, emotional relatives recited Islamic prayers in the shade of trees that have since grown there. Kayanisa, a 59-year-old Indonesian housewife, lost her mother and daughter, searching in vain for them in the hope that they were still alive. I kept chanting God's name. I looked for them everywhere, she said. There was a moment where I realized they were gone. I felt my chest was in pain. I screamed. The victims included many foreign tourists celebrating Christmas on the region's sun-kissed beaches, bringing the tragedy into homes around the globe. The seabed being ripped open pushed waves at double the speed of a bullet train crossing the Indian Ocean within hours. In Thailand, where half of the more than 5,000 dead were foreign tourists, commemorations began early in Ban Nam Kem, its worst-hit village. Tearful relatives laid flowers and wreaths at a curved wall in the shape of a tsunami wave with plaques bearing victims' names. Napaporn Pakawan lost her older sister and a niece in the tragedy. After an interfaith ceremony, Italian survivor Francesca Ermini thanked volunteers for saving her life. Unofficial beachside vigils were also expected to accompany a Thai government memorial ceremony. A total of 226,408 people died as a result of the tsunami, according to EMDAT, a recognized global disaster database. There was no warning of the impending tsunami, giving little time for evacuation despite the hours-long gaps between the waves striking different continents. But today, a sophisticated network of monitoring stations has cut down warning times. In Sri Lanka, where more than 35,000 people perished, survivors and relatives gathered to remember around 1,000 victims who died when waves derailed a passenger train. The mourners boarded the restored Ocean Queen Express and headed to Paralia, the exact spot where it was ripped from the tracks, around 90 kilometers south of Colombo. A brief religious ceremony was held with relatives of the dead there, while Buddhist, Hindu, Christian, and Muslim ceremonies were also organized to commemorate victims across the South Asian island nation. Nearly 300 people were killed as far away as Somalia, as well as more than 100 in the Maldives and dozens in Malaysia and Myanmar. Dorothy Wilkinson, a 56-year-old British woman who lost her partner and his parents to the tsunami in Thailand, said the commemorations were a time to remember the best of those who died. It makes me happy to come a bit sad, she said. It's celebrating their life. Yes, I know. Now they have all the buoy system, advanced warnings and stuff like that, but back then they didn't have that stuff. And over almost a quarter of a million people. That's ridiculous. In one shot like that. So meanwhile, in South Korea, they've been they've been having a time there, right? Their president, they pulled the martial law stunt there, and they impeached him, and well, then they got this guy to be the interim head of state, and well, now they're impeaching him too. Fuck him, impeach everybody. You get an impeachment. You get an impeachment. You get an impeachment. South Korea votes to impeach acting president. Han Duck-soo became the country's interim head of state after the parliament stripped President Yoon Suk Yeol of his powers earlier this month. It's the same month. He goes too. South Korea's parliament has voted to impeach acting head of state Han Duck-soo over his refusal to appoint justices to the Constitutional Court, local media reported on Friday. The appointments are necessary to finalize the impeachment of Han's predecessor, President Yoon Suk Yeol, who was stripped of his powers earlier this month. The motion to impeach Han, I can't do it with that, filed by the opposition Democratic Party, was passed with 192 votes in favor. In the 300-member parliament called the National Assembly, Speaker Woo Won-shik announced in a televised statement, or might be chic, I don't know. The National Assembly initially voted to impeach Yoon on December 14th over his brief imposition of martial law in the country. On December 3rd, he had declared emergency martial law on the grounds that the opposition, which he accused of being sympathetic towards North Korea, had allegedly been preparing a rebellion. The impeachment decision by the National Assembly meant that Yoon was automatically suspended from office. However, in order to complete the procedure, it must be upheld by the Constitutional Court. The 9-member bench is currently short of 3 judges, and while it can technically vote with only 6 members, a single dissenting vote would reinstate Yoon to office under South Korean law. Look at that. Yeah, look, you're missing 3 judges there, Uni boy. All right there. As interim head of state, Han was expected to appoint the justices to fill the vacancies following the requests from the opposition party, which is against Yoon's reinstatement. On Thursday, the National Assembly passed the appointment consent bill for 3 candidates, 2 of which were nominated by the opposition and 1 by the ruling Conservative People Power Party, the Triple P, that Triple P, 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 P. However, at an emergency press conference immediately afterward, Han said he could not appoint the justices right away as the Triple P did not support the nominees and the appointment could harm the constitutional order. The consistent principle embedded in our Constitution and laws is to refrain from exercising significant exclusive presidential powers, including the appointment of constitutional institutions, he argued in his address, adding that a consensus between the ruling and opposition parties in the National Assembly representing the people must first be reached. In response to this, the opposition proposed impeaching Han as well. It's become clear that Prime Minister and Acting President Han Duck-soo has neither the qualifications nor the will to protect the Constitution, Park Chan-dae, the Democratic Party's floor leader, said in a statement announcing the motion. Damn, throwing shade at the Duck-soo. Friday's vote marked the first time in South Korea's modern history that an impeachment motion has been filed against an acting president. The country's finance minister Choi Sang-mok is now expected to take over as acting president and will probably be impeached a week later as well. Impeach them all. Right? They must like Georgia because of those Florida, those Georgia impeaches. Impeaches. Death to Tyrants over on the Rock Fiend. Harry, Merry Christmas to you too. And CBC voters over here too. Holy happy Friday Fish Day. It is Fish Day for some people if you like fish. I like fish. You don't like fish, that's fine. We can live together. Maybe. I'll just chase you around with a fish going, fishy. As we swing over to Africa, not the Toto song, which is great, by the way, but the actual continent. 6,000 inmates escaped from Mozambique jail amid post-election violence. So a lot of crazy shit happening there. At least 6,000 prisoners have escaped from a maximum prison in Mozambique as widespread post-election riots and violence continue to engulf the country. 33 of them are said to have died during confrontations with the police and the military. Mozambican Police Chief Bernardino Raphael, that's a great name, said 6,000 inmates broke out of a maximum security prison in the capital Maputo after a rebellion on Wednesday on the sidelines of violent protests that have seen police cars, stations, and general public infrastructure destroyed after the country's Constitutional Council confirmed the ruling Frelimo Party as winner of the October 9th elections. There have also been reports of widespread looting of shops. Police say that prisoners at the facility snatched weapons from prison warders and started freeing other detainees. A curious fact is that in that prison, we had 29 convicted terrorists who they released. We are worried as a country, as Mozambicans, as members of the defense and security forces, said Raphael. According to the police chief, the escape from the Maputo Central Prison, located nearly 9 miles southwest of the capital, took place around midday after agitation of a group of subversive protesters nearby. The protesters were making noise demanding that they be able to remove the prisoners who are there serving their sentences, said Raphael, adding that the protests had led to the collapse of a wall, allowing the prisoners to escape. This confrontation resulted in 33 deaths in direct confrontation with the prisoners. 15 were injured, said Raphael, as he called for the voluntary surrender of the escaping prisoners and for the population to be informed about the fugitives. Videos circulating on social media showed the moment prisoners escape from jail, while other recordings reveal captures made by military personnel and prison guards. Many prisoners tried to hide in homes to escape, but some were unsuccessful and ended up being detained. One prisoner, still with handcuffs on his right wrist, says in an amateur video that he was in the disciplinary section of the maximum prison and was released by other prisoners. I wonder if they tried to do that whole bit, where they like get up on each other's shoulders and they put on a woman's dress and they go, "Oh, hello, excuse me, I'm off to the market." Yes, this giant 9-foot woman, or 12-foot, whatever, like the Stooges did, or something like that. I'm just saying. So, of course, that's going on there. Poor Mozambique. They are having all kinds of problems there. As are our German pals over there in Deutschland, as the German president dissolves parliament and confirms February vote. Yep. Oh, Germany. Europe is just falling apart, man. For reals. German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier has dissolved the country's parliament, confirming that snap elections prompted by the recent collapse of Chancellor Olaf Scholz's government will be held on February 23rd. Delivering a speech at Berlin's Bellevue Palace on Friday, Steinmeier said that the country required a government capable of acting and reliable majorities in parliament to maintain stability in difficult times. Oh, that is so cute that you think that about government. Scholz, a social democrat, lost a confidence vote in parliament earlier this month after the departure of finance minister Christian Lindner's Free Democrats left his unwieldy governing coalition without a legislative majority. He will remain in office as a caretaker chancellor until a new government is formed at a time when the country is reeling from a deadly car ramming attack at a Christmas market last week, which has revived heated debate over security and immigration. Of course it has. Of course immigration's in the mix. It always is, right? That's what these kind of things are designed to do, to gin up the hatred. Suspect Talib al-Abdul-Moseh, a 50-year-old psychiatrist from Saudi Arabia who had lived in Germany for nearly 20 years, was a supporter of the increasingly popular far-right Alternative for Germany party, the AfD, who had promoted Islamophobic views. Yeah. I think that's it. Okay, yeah, I think that's it. Oh, okay. So the president, whose post has been largely ceremonial in the post-war era, called for the election campaign to be conducted fairly and transparently, warning of foreign influence, with specific reference to billionaire Elon Musk's social media platform, the Tweeters. Hatred and violence must have no place in the election campaign, nor denigration or intimidation. All this is poison for democracy, Steinmeier said, but not in that voice. He also reminded political parties and voters of the challenges the next government will face given the economically unstable situation and the wars in the Middle East and Ukraine, as well as debates over immigration and climate change. Steinmeier emphasized in his speech that problem-solving must become the core business of politics again. Polls suggest conservative challenger Friedrich Merz, who claims the incumbent government stifled growth with excessive regulations, will replace Schultz. The polls indicate the conservatives hold a comfortable lead of more than 10 points over Schultz's Social Democrats. Mainstream parties have refused to govern with the AfD, which is positioned slightly ahead of the SPD, that's the Social Democrats, but its presence complicates parliamentary arithmetic, making shaky coalitions more likely. Yep. You got to deal with the hard right. Here we go. More hard right stuff coming up. So finally, well, not finally for this segment, but it's finally for Chad. We mentioned that France was getting the hell out of there, and now France hands over its first base in Chad during the withdrawal from the former colony. So they're giving away the store. France has handed over its first military base as part of the withdrawal of its military forces from Chad, the French and Chadian military say. I wonder if they have, if they're gossip people, there are chatty Cathys. Chad's chief of military staff yesterday said the base at Faya-Largeau in the north of the country had been handed over, and the army would inform the public about progress concerning the withdrawal of French forces from bases in the eastern city of Abechi and the capital, N'Djamena. Chad's military said French troops had left in vehicles for N'Djamena 480 miles to the south without providing a precise figure. The French army had about 1,000 personnel in the country. The handover took place in accordance with the calendar and the conditions agreed with Chad, the French military chief of staff said separately. Chad last month ended military cooperation with its former colonial power, and French troops began leaving the country on Friday, 10 days after French warplanes left. The move came as Chad prepares to hold parliamentary and local elections this Sunday, I believe. Look at that. All right. So they're like, get the hell out, y'all. Frenchie, you take your French and you and your bagels, you get the fuck out of here. Speaking of leaving, the British military just got a pay raise, but you know what? The soldiers there still are like, oh, that's not going to be enough. So, despite a salary hike, many soldiers leave British military. The UK is experiencing an alarmingly high attrition rate in its armed forces, with many soldiers continuing to leave the service despite a salary increase approved by the government last summer. Attrition in the military refers to the gradual loss of personnel due to factors such as retirement and resignation, which negatively impact operational readiness and force strength. Around 15,000 British troops left the military in the year to October 2024, with more than half of these departures categorized as voluntary attrition, according to a report by The Telegraph. Notably, the UK Armed Forces only enlisted over 12,000 personnel in the same period, resulting in a net decrease in military strength. As of October, there are reportedly just 2 servicemen and women for every 1,000 people in Britain, the first time this has happened. Earlier this year, data from the UK Ministry of Defense, the MOD, yeah, you know me, that other D, well, that's not so simple, revealed that more people quit the military than joined in 2023, with factors such as poor living conditions and declining troop morale cited as the main causes. Oh, and probably recruiters lying to them on the regular. That probably had something to do with it. In July, the British government announced a 6% salary increase for military personnel, the largest in over 2 decades. The raise aims to address recruitment and retention challenges which have reportedly affected the military's operational readiness. Our new government's first duty is keeping the British people safe, and the strength of our defense lies in the serving men and women of our forces, Defense Secretary John Healey stated. This pay award will benefit every member of the armed forces. It is an important step towards turning around the declining morale and recruitment crisis we have faced in recent years. Despite the increase, the military remains one of the lowest paid sectors among civil servants in the UK, according to reports. Well, see, now they just become a cop, and then, ooh, that money, boop, boop, that money, boop, boop. Earlier this year, the UK Ministry of Defence reported that the British military had its lowest numbers of active duty personnel since the Napoleonic Wars in 1815. Je ne sais quoi. As of January, the force's strength stood at 75,983, and it is expected to drop to 73,000 by next year as the government has opted to reduce personnel and focus on modernization. Robot dogs, you know them robot puppies are coming. Due to the decline, then Chief of the General Staff, Patrick Sanders, warned that the British Armed Forces is too small to survive a war and may need to call on the public to fight. Several lawmakers have also argued that the military is unfit for an all-out conflict, similar to that in Ukraine due to recruitment challenges and stockpile shortages. They said, "No tea and crumpets for you, sir. You'll get yourself into that military. You'll fight for your country, old chap. Oh, tell you who else ain't taking no shit. It's Panama, man. Because Trump's like, we're gonna take it back. We're gonna get the canal. We're gonna get it. And he didn't say he was gonna go get it, but he's probably thinking it. So the Panama president rules out talks with Trump over canal threat. Look at this guy. He's like, I have this canal. It's this wide. You cannot have any of it. Panamanian President Jose Raul Mulino rejected yesterday talks with Donald Trump over ownership of the Panama Canal, which the U.S. president-elect has promised to restore to Washington. Mulino also rejected the idea of lowering canal charges for U.S. vessels and claimed that China had no control over the crucial waterway that connects the Atlantic and Pacific Seas. If there's an intention to talk, then there's nothing to talk about, Mulino stated at a weekly news conference. He added that the canal is Panamanian and belongs to Panamanians, further adding, there's no possibility of opening any kind of conversation around this reality, which has cost the country blood, sweat, and tears. Trump stirred controversy when he criticized what he described as unfair fees imposed on U.S. ships using the man-made canal and suggested that Washington might demand control of the vital waterway be restored to the U.S. If Panama could not ensure the secure, efficient, and reliable operation of the channel, then we will demand that the Panama Canal be returned to us in full and without question, he warned. In response, Mulino firmly dismissed Trump's remarks on Sunday, stressing that every square meter of the Panama Canal and its adjacent areas belongs to Panama, hence the Panama Canal, and will continue belonging to Panama. Trump, in turn, responded on Truth Social with a brief retort, "We'll see about that. I will come get your ditch. I'm going to get your ditch." Trump's comments have raised questions about the actions he might take, with critics questioning whether he is contemplating drastic measures such as military intervention. We're going to bring democracy to Panama, y'all. Mulino stated that the usage costs were not set at the whim of the president or administrator of the interoceanic canal, but rather through a long-established public and open process. On Tuesday, hundreds of protesters gathered outside the U.S. Embassy in Panama City yelling, "Trump animal, leave the canal alone," and burning his photo. Yeah, he's going to take what's he going to do? Is he going to bring in troops? I guess that's what he would do. He'd bring in troops. I'm going to get that canal back. I'm going to get it. I want it back. I want that canal so fucking bad. Give me the canal. Finally, in our news segment here, all you Bitcoin nuts, you're like, oh man, you remember that nut that paid like $10,000 for pizza with Bitcoin before he knew what he had? Yeah, that guy's probably feeling kind of stupid. But if you didn't invest in cocoa beans, well, you probably should be feeling silly too there, mister. What do you mean? Where's the crumb cake? Tweet promise crumb cake. Yeah, there's your fucking crumb cake, Fred. There's your goddamn crumb cake, you son of a... You're messing up my flow, man, with your crumb cake. Cocoa bean beats Bitcoin. Wow, wow, wow. Look at them delicious cocoa beans. Chocolicious. Cocoa has been named the best performing commodity of the year, outperforming Bitcoin, according to Bloomberg. The crypto coin was arguably the most watched asset this year as it smashed the long-awaited $100,000 threshold earlier this month. Prices for chocolate's main ingredient have almost tripled since the start of 2024, as faltering production in West Africa, the world's biggest growing region, led to massive supply shortages, publication wrote, citing exchange data. In early January, cocoa futures traded at around $4,000 per ton. A ton of chocolate? Damn, baby. In mid-December, they peaked at $12,700 per ton, according to data from Trading Economics. So you should put that money in that chocolate. The gains of Bitcoin pale in comparison, wrote financial news website MarketWatch. The best-known cryptocurrency and the biggest by market capitalization gained nearly 128%, rising just over $41,000 per coin in early January to a peak of $106,500 in mid-December. Bitcoin has rallied partly due to investor expectations of crypto-friendly policies from U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's administration. Poor cocoa harvests have been attributed to extreme weather and fertilizer shortages. Severe drought has hit West Africa this year with temperatures above 40 degrees Celsius. Pretty sure that's hot. Breaking records in the Ivory Coast and Ghana, the world's two biggest producers of cocoa beans. West Africa is also grappling with a severe soil health crisis, with 2/3 of the region's land being degraded and fertilizer application rates lagging far behind global averages, according to the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture, the ITA. Many African countries are dependent on fertilizer imports from Russia, Belarus, will you do the fandango, and Ukraine. The reduced supply following the escalation of the Ukraine conflict in 2022 has resulted in shortages and price hikes. Look at this delicious chocolates. All those little yummies, I want them all. According to Trading Economics, ongoing supply challenges exacerbated by climate change and lack of fertilizer are expected to keep cocoa prices at historically high levels in the coming year. So yeah, folks, y'all be won't get on that cocoa. Bitcoin's cool, but have you tried cocoa? Cocoalicious? You should. I didn't even think about that. If you had invested in cocoa at the beginning of the year, you would have tripled your money by the end of the year. All right. Well, we'll see. We'll see what Bitcoin does next year, too. It's probably going to be like 1 trillion or something like that. Did you know that our U.S. lawmakers are full of shit and they lie all the time? And what they lie about the most is stock trading. And they're like, no, we don't have any insider trading. What are you talking about? That's silly stuff. And yeah, it turns out that's probably not true.
The sharing of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these things that are true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Analysis shows U.S. lawmakers traded up to $113 million in arms stocks this year. What? Tell me those are lies. Dozens of U.S. lawmakers and their families bought or sold up to $113 million worth of shares in top Pentagon contractors this year. An analysis published on Wednesday revealed the Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft, you know that rag, found that at least 37 members of Congress and their relatives traded between $24 and $113 million worth of stock in companies listed on Defense and Security Monitor's Top 100 Defense Contractors Index. As the Quincy Institute noted, 8 of these members even simultaneously held positions on the Armed Services and Foreign Affairs Committees, the committees overseeing defense policy and foreign relations. Members of Congress that oversee the annual defense bill and are privy to intelligence briefings have an upper hand in predicting future stock prices. Oh, really now? Is that a thing? The analysis found that one Democratic congressman accounted for the vast bulk of defense stock trading in 2024. Your winner and still champion, Representative Josh Gottheimer, got more money, more like it, of New Jersey, traded at least $22 million and as much as $104 million worth of shares in companies on the index, including Microsoft, Northrop Grumman, and IBM. Gottheimer, who said his trades are handled by a third-party firm, you mean his third-party firm, sits on both the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence and the National Security Subcommittee of the Committee on Financial Services. Look at all that money. And then you got Nancy Pelosi right at a cool $1 million and $1. What? Then you got Susan Delbean, Scott Franklin, Thomas Keene, Jonathan Jackson, Tommy Tuberville, that fucker, and the list goes on. Next on the list, there we go. In distant second place is former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who has defended stock trading by lawmakers and, according to Quincy, sold over $1 million worth of Microsoft stock in late July. The timing of Pelosi's Microsoft trades in the past have garnered attention too. In March 2021, she bought Microsoft call options less than 2 weeks before the Army announced a $22 billion contract with the software company to supply augmented reality headsets, the analysis states. Pelosi had the most profitable 2024 of any lawmaker, netting an estimated $38.6 million from all stock trading activity, according to Quiver Quantitative. The report adds, Pelosi was followed by Representative Susan Delbean, a Democrat out of Washington, Scott Franklin, a Republican from Florida, and Thomas Keene Jr., the Republican from New Jersey. The Quincy Institute asserted if Congress wants to wash itself of conflicts of interest, it can start by passing a stock trading ban. The Ending Trading and Holdings in Congressional Stocks Act. The Ending Trading and Holdings in Congressional Stocks Act, or ethics. Why do they have to do this? We have to do this shit with the names. Would prohibit members of Congress from trading individual stocks. The Ethics Act was approved by the Democrat-controlled Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Government Affairs in July. The full Senate, which will be GOP-controlled starting next month, has yet to vote on the bill. Earlier this month, U.S. President Joe Biden was applauded by progressive lawmakers for backing a ban on congressional stock trading and asserting that nobody in the Congress should be able to make money in the stock market while they're in the Congress. The presidency, that's no problem. But Congress, no, what the fuck's wrong with you people? On Monday, Biden signed the $895 billion Service Member Quality of Life Improvement and National Defense Authorization Act with the military budget for fiscal year 2025. As Bernie Sanders has highlighted, of that nearly $1 trillion, about half will go to a handful of hugely profitable defense contractors. Well, he's not wrong there. Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib decried both the enormity of the military budget as well as the fact that some of her colleagues have profited from investments in the military-industrial complex. Tlaib has introduced the Stop Politicians Profiting from War Act, which would ban members of Congress, their spouses, and their dependent children from trading defense stocks or having financial interests in companies that do business with the U.S. Department of Defense. In 2012, Congress passed the Stop Trading on Congressional Knowledge Stock Act legislation that has been panned as weak and ineffective, just like all these other dumbass things. They could call it enema, and it still wouldn't. It still would be some sort of bullshit. So that again, not news to us about like Nancy Pelosi, but others too. Sure, yeah. That's why you have all these wars, folks. War makes money for people that don't go to war. That's usually what happens. So another poll, another no duh moment in America, as we find out that 2/3 of U.S. adults are tuning out political news now. Thank God. After a year dominated by a relentless and intense United States presidential election campaign, Americans are looking for a break from political news, a new poll suggests. The Associated Press NORC Center for Public Affairs research poll released on Thursday found that 65% of U.S. adults said they felt the need to limit media consumption about politics and government due to information overload and fatigue. Broken down by political affiliation, about 7 in 10 Democratic Party voters, 72%, said they were taking a step back from political news. 59% of Republicans said the same, as did 63% of independents. People are mentally exhausted, Ziad Unala, a 45-year-old in San Diego, California, told AP. Everyone knows what's coming, and we're just taking some time off. The survey, conducted in early December, comes weeks after Donald Trump secured victory in the November 5th presidential election over Kamala Harris. Media coverage focused on Trump and Harris as they spent months on the campaign trail, crisscrossing the country to hold rallies and meet with voters. Since Trump's victory, the U.S. president-elect and his plans for once he gets into the White House next month have dominated the news cycle. But like the AP NORC poll found, U.S. television news ratings show that many Americans aren't tuning in as 2024 comes to a close. After election night through December 13th, the primetime viewership of the MSNBC television news network was an average of 620,000 households, down 54% from the pre-election hype and scaring and fear-mongering audience this year, the Nielsen company said. See, now they stopped scaring you because the election's over. That's what kept people glued to the boob tube, was all the fear. CNN's average of 405,000 viewers was down 45% over the same period. But see, their numbers are going to go right back up because Trump's going to be president, right? And so when Trump's president, all these stories about Trump this, Trump that, it's just going to feed the red meat, just feed this red meat to all the savage cultists who have the Trump derangement syndrome and all that shit. There was a marked difference, however, when looking at the numbers at the Fox News Channel, a favorite network for Trump supporters. There, the post-election average of 2.68 million viewers is up 13%, Nielsen said. Since the election, 72% of the people watching one of those 3 cable networks in the evening were watching Fox News, compared with 53% prior to Election Day. Political fatigue and a need to disengage from the news is not a new phenomenon in the U.S., where polarization and divisive rhetoric have skyrocketed in recent years. In 2020, the Pew Research Center found that about 2/3 of Americans reported feeling worn out by the amount of news available to them. nearly the same percentage of people who said they experienced news fatigue in 2018. Pew also reported in September last year that 65% of people surveyed said they always or often felt exhausted when thinking about politics, while 55% said they always or often feel angry. By design, folks. The same survey found about 8 in 10 Americans responded negatively when asked to describe the state of politics in the country, with many opting for the word divisive to explain the situation. Arash Javanbakht, an associate professor of psychiatry at Wayne State University in Michigan, has explained that the politics of fear is among the top 3 reasons why many Americans are disengaging from politics. COVID-19 pandemic, more than a decade of intense political stress, polarizing social media, and wars across the world, as well as public disillusionment with U.S. politics and media have led, I believe, to many people experiencing burnout and learned helplessness, he wrote in the Conversation this month. Yeah, people are burned out about it. Unless you don't really cater to the two-party system. If you're on the outside who doesn't think any of this is who thinks it's all theater, and so if you're not burnt out by it, you're worn. People like us are more burnt out by the number of people who still believe that this shit's real and not theater. I think that's part of it. So, yeah. So meanwhile, you've heard of these U.S. aid groups that are mostly just like an extension of the government. So U.S. funded group removes report warning of famine in North Gaza after complaint from U.S. ambassador. Oh, really? The Famine Early Warning System Network, a project funded by the U.S. Agency for International Development, has removed a report from its website that warned it was highly likely famine is occurring in northern Gaza after a complaint by the U.S. ambassador to Israel. The report noted that Israel has imposed a near-total blockade of humanitarian and commercial food supplies on the North Gaza Governorate, which includes the cities of Beit Lahia, Beit Hanun, and Jabalia. The report said 65 to 75,000 civilians remained in the area, including civilians who have been unable to or prevented from evacuating. U.S. Ambassador Jack Lew issued a statement slamming the report, saying there are far fewer civilians in those areas, as acknowledgement of the ethnic cleansing campaign that Israel has been conducting in northern Gaza since early October. The report issued today on Gaza by FuseNet relies on data that is outdated and inaccurate, Lew said. He claimed that there are somewhere between 7,000 and 15,000 civilians in the North Gaza Governorate, at a time when inaccurate information is causing confusion and accusations. It is irresponsible to issue a report like this, the UN ambassador said. FuseNet said it used UN numbers from mid-November and that it would update its report with the latest figures, but the group did not withdraw its assessment that famine was likely occurring in northern Gaza. Last month, the Integrated Food Security Phase Classification, the IPC, said there was a strong likelihood famine was occurring in northern Gaza. Lew also claimed that the U.S. has worked to ensure more humanitarian access in North Gaza, but the area has been under a total siege and only 12 aid trucks have been able to make deliveries since October 6th. Israel has forcibly displaced civilians from the area under the threat of death, either by shooting, bombing, or starvation, following an outline known as always, the General's Plan. The General. Not that guy that does the car insurance. That's another general. Meanwhile, back in Michigan, students have sued the University of Michigan over pro-Palestinian protest crackdown. So UM, a big college. That's the Wolverines. Wolverines! Current and former students at the University of Michigan have filed a lawsuit against the school alleging it disproportionately disciplined pro-Palestinian protesters and violated their free speech rights. The federal lawsuit was filed today in the U.S. District Court in Detroit. The plaintiffs, actually that was last week, I'm sorry, last Friday. The plaintiffs alleged that the school violated the students' constitutional rights to free speech, due process, and equal protection under the law. The 6 current and former students also alleged that the University of Michigan initiated discipline proceedings against the students for speech-related conduct that other groups weren't punished for. The plaintiffs also alleged that students were targeted with different degrees of disciplinary proceedings based on race. They also alleged they were fired from campus jobs and blacklisted for future employment. The egregious constitutional violations outlined in this suit are merely a fraction of the repression the University of Michigan has subjected student activists like us to because of our assertion that the university should not financially invest in and materially benefit from the genocide of the Palestinian people. Graduate student and plaintiff Nora Hilgart Griff told the Detroit News that the university has departed from its longstanding allowance of student protest, even protests that may be critical of university policies or leadership. For this issue alone is evidence of the way the Palestinian people are systematically and intentionally dehumanized by the countries who fund and enable their dispossession and deaths. The lawsuit names the University of Michigan's Board of Regents, its president, Santa Ono, vice president for student life, Martino Harmon, and 2 independent consultants, Omar Torres and Stephanie Jackson, as defendants. So campus protests against Israel erupted after it launched a devastating offensive on the Gaza Strip in response to the Hamas-led October 7th attacks. Both Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International have said Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. The campus protests were widespread during the 2023 school year, but have been more sporadic this year. Rights groups say there's been a crackdown on free speech by universities and the U.S. government. The University of Michigan lawsuit is the latest component of the campus protest movement, with current and former students alleging that their school's behavior violated constitutional rights and potentially hindered their postgraduate career courses. In September, Students for Justice in Palestine at the University of Maryland sued their school to hold an interfaith vigil on October 7th to mourn those killed in Gaza. A federal judge ruled that the school could not block the event. The University of Michigan case is related to a student sit-in at the university president's office and a die-in at a student gathering space in August. The lawsuit alleges that the school called in police from more than 10 jurisdictions to disperse the latter event. The police made 42 arrests and gave citations to protesters for failing to leave the building when they were told to do so. The plaintiffs allege that the university has never taken similar action at prior sit-ins, which are common. 25 of the students give disciplinary notices, requested an arbitration before a student panel, and all were found to have not violated the student code. Harmon, the vice president for student life, later rescinded the decision, according to the lawsuit. The student protest movement was catapulted, into the limelight by congressional hearings in which a Republican majority in the House of Representatives alleged the schools had not done enough to stamp out protesters. A Republican-led House committee accused university leaders of giving in to anti-Semitism. I believe this is when Senator John Kennedy said, do you denounce Hamas? While the U.S. Director of National Intelligence even alleging that Iran is providing financial support to pro-Palestine activists. The debate also helped put Congresswoman Elise Stefanik on the political map. She was the one, I think, getting grilled. Yeah. Following her grilling of university presidents, President-elect Donald Trump nominated Stefanik as the U.S. ambassador to the UN. Yep. And they'll keep doing it, too. They are going to keep you know, they're going to keep this pressure up on campuses. So it really depends on the kids and how long they're willing to do this for, you know. Meanwhile, of course, Israel's killing the press. Israeli strike on press van kills 5 Palestinian journalists in Gaza. The Israeli military bombed a clearly marked press vehicle in central Gaza yesterday, killing 5 journalists in an attack that the Palestinian Journalist Syndicate condemned as a heinous crime. The journalists killed were Fadi Hasuna, Ibrahim al-Sheikh Ali, Mohammed al-Lada, Faisal Abu al-Qumsan, and Ayman al-Jadi. All of them worked for Al-Quds Today, a local television channel. Middle East Eye reported that the slain journalists were outside Al-Auda Hospital in the Nusrat refugee camp when their van was struck by an Israeli strike yesterday morning. Hani Aburezek, a Middle East Eye reporter at the scene, said the broadcast van was entirely burnt and destroyed. It was fully engulfed in flames. And Al Jazeera reported that one of the journalists killed in the strike was waiting for his wife in front of the hospital while she was in labor to give birth to their first child. Jesus. The Israeli military claimed without providing evidence that the 5 men were militants posing as journalists. Israel has repeatedly accused journalists working in Gaza of being militants. International law prohibits the targeting of journalists unless they directly participate in hostilities. According to the Committee to Protect Journalists, the CPJ, more than 130 Palestinian journalists in Gaza have been killed since Israel's massive assault on the enclave began following the Hamas-led attack last year. CPJ's Middle East and North Africa program said Thursday that it is devastated by the reports that 5 journalists and media workers were killed inside their broadcasting vehicle by an Israeli strike. Journalists are civilians and must always be protected, the group added. Unless they're Hamas, you know, so they can't protect them if they're Hamas. A Guardian investigation released earlier this year found that amid a loosening of the Israeli Defense Forces' interpretation of the laws of war after the deadly Hamas-led attacks on October 7th, some within the IDF appeared to have viewed journalists working in Gaza for outlets controlled by or affiliated with Hamas to be legitimate military targets. That includes babies, because babies are Hamas too. Under the Geneva Conventions, a journalist can lose their civilian status if they engage in planning or carrying out combat operations, the Guardian noted. Working for an organization such as Al-Quds Today does not make someone a target. It is if you're telling the truth. If you stop telling the truth, they'll stop targeting you. You're supposed to tout the line. That's how the game is played. And they're firing on journalists down in Haiti as well. Armed men opened fire on journalists during reopening of Haiti hospital. So yeah, tragic what's going on in Haiti. Armed men have opened fire on a group of journalists in Haiti who had gathered to cover the reopening of the capital's largest public hospital. While authorities have not offered details on casualties from the attack on Tuesday, the Reuters news agency reported that 2 journalists and a police officer were killed, citing a journalist who witnessed the attack and asked not to be named. We express our sympathy to all the victims' families, in particular to the PNH, that's Haiti's National Police, and all the Journalists Association, Haiti's Transitional Presidential Council, stated in a social media post. We guarantee them that this act will not remain without consequences. The attack is the latest to roil Haiti, where continued political and economic instability have helped fuel the rise of violent armed gangs that have grown more powerful since the assassination of former President Jovenel Moïse in 2021. Law enforcement authorities on the island nation have struggled to counter the criminal groups, which have exerted control over an estimated 80% of the capital, Port-au-Prince, where widespread violence has hammered civilians and disrupted vital services. One institution forced to close in March was the General Hospital, the country's largest public hospital. Journalists had gathered on Tuesday morning to cover the facility's reopening when gunmen opened fire at about 11 a.m. local time. Government officials had convened to reopen the hospital in downtown Port-au-Prince in July, but that event was also targeted by gunfire, which forced former Prime Minister Gary Canal to flee the scene. An unverified video post online on Tuesday appears to show 3 journalists lying wounded on the floor of the building. A recent report by the UN stated that only 24% of health facilities in the Port-au-Prince area are operational. Johnson Izo Andre, a powerful gang leader in a coalition known as the Viv Asan, posted a video to social media on Tuesday taking credit for the attack. Wow, crazy. And they have Kenyan police forces there in Haiti too. What do you mean? What are you writing a book? We started late today. We started at 11 a.m. We started at noon Eastern instead of 11. Should pay more attention to your shows that you watch. Kate, is it? You're still my favorite Canadian, so it's all good. Finally, maybe a little bit of good news as Iran lifts its WhatsApp ban. Or maybe not. I don't. May not be a good thing. I don't know. Iran's Supreme Council of Cyberspace. I want to be on the Supreme Council of Cyberspace. Has unanimously voted to lift a nationwide ban on WhatsApp and Google Play. State media reported on Tuesday. Tehran restricted access to a host of Western messaging and social media platforms during a wave of civil unrest in 2022. The ban on WhatsApp and Google Play was removed by a unanimous vote of the members of the Supreme Council of Cyberspace, the INRA news agency reported after a meeting of the council chaired by President Masoud Pezeshkian. Today, we took the first step towards lifting internet restrictions with unanimity and consensus, Iranian Communications Minister Sattar Hashemi wrote in a post on the Twitter shortly afterwards. WhatsApp, Google Play, and several other platforms, including Instagram, were banned in Iran in September of 2022 after the death of a 22-year-old woman in police custody sparked a wave of demonstrations. Tehran maintains that the protests were stoked and encouraged by Western intelligence agencies, and police in the Iranian capital have released video suggesting that the woman died of a heart attack rather than as a result of abuse. Facebook, the tweeters, and YouTube have all been blocked in Iran since 2009. Reformists have long argued that these bans have not bolstered national security and have only irritated the Iranian public. What have the bans achieved so far except anger and additional cost to people's lives and the spread of pessimism? Presidential advisor Ali Rabia wrote in a post on the tweeters Tuesday. According to AFP, however, a group of conservative lawmakers wrote to the Supreme Council of Cyberspace before the vote and urged them not to lift the restrictions, claiming that such a move would be a gift to Iran's enemies. Yes, letting them talk to each other on WhatsApp would be a gift to their enemies. In September, the White House urged American tech CEOs to help Iranians bypass government restrictions by offering them free VPN tools to access their platforms. VPNs, or virtual private networks, allow internet users to connect to web services via proxy servers in other countries, although not very well. It really depends on what you get, and even then, it might be a little on the dicey side. So, finally this evening, folks. This evening, it's evening somewhere. Sure, why not? We like to talk about chickens on other shows, so we're going to talk about a chicken here. As deputy chases escaped rooster around a church parking lot. Well, this sounds like fun. Should we watch it? maybe what's going on here? What? I don't think there's any audio on this. I think it's just him. This is him chasing the chicken. Oh, look at that chicken! Don't choke the chicken. See, and he's running around and he's having fun with his new friend. He was later caught and fried. That's all you get. You get that chicken. And then some bit of bullshit here. So police in Alabama, this was in Alabama. You thought that it might be Florida. Alabama's a close second to nutty shit. Police in Alabama shared body camera footage from a chase involving an armed and dangerous subject, a rooster. Womp, womp. The Shelby County Sheriff's Office said on social media that deputies responded to an armed and dangerous suspect attempting to roost in a local church parking lot. The video shows a deputy risking his life to protect the church flock. His feathers were ruffled, his nerves fried, but Deputy Watkins never nested until he got his man, the Post said. The rooster eventually fled into a tree where the deputy was able to grab the avian and carry him back to his coop. And why did I share that with you? Is because I was running late. I didn't have a kicker, so... So you got a chicken story. That's what you get. That's all you get. That's all you ever deserve. So what's today? Friday? I don't know. The usual suspects on tonight. I think we got Willie and D. They got their shows on tonight. Willie, you doing a show? I know he did one last night. I don't know if he's doing one tonight. We'll see. We might do a little end of the year hangout with the peeps stream on this show. Well, not this one, on the ExtraBulla Live. Maybe if you're good and I feel up to it, we'll do that tonight. And but of course tomorrow we got this bullshit, the secret show. If you're into that sort of thing, as you should be, midnight Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific time. We'll have some fun little happies. You know, some videos and shit. There's this one, I found this thing on the tweeters today that's pretty cool. It's like old contraptions that are like, wow, man, we should use those today. Oh, no show tonight, Willie? Okay. The brag man has spoken. So we might do that tonight. We'll see. But we're getting the end of the year, y'all. Tuesday is the 31st, the last day of the year. And then all the 2025 Republican stuff happens, right? When they unleash the robot dogs for reals, all the drones and stuff that's happening in New Jersey and the East Coast, it's all going to be worldwide. You think it's all going to go crazy this year? I think so. I think they know that in 2029 that Apophis is going to hit us. And so they're doing all this crazy shit in the meantime. You might do a show Sunday, Willie. Oh yes, listen to Kate's playlist there. It's in the YouTube chat, but she's on Mixcloud.com. The third transit. What's the? It cut it off. It did the ... As if it were poetry. I think that's it for me. I appreciate everybody. And this has been a good, we'll be coming up on the end of 6 months with doing this show. And the response has been good, I think. We've been a growing, steady audience. I appreciate all the hard work and love that you put into your own lives. And then you take a little time and spend it with us to get you some information. So that's what we're here to do. There we go. So that's Mixcloud.com, Third Transition Media. Very good. Yay! Yeah, check Kate out. What's up, Matt? Good to see you, my friend. Anybody else I missed? Kill your egregores. I see you sneaking in there. You are very sneaky. course, Willie in the mix too. I think I got everybody else too. So, all right, folks, that's it for me. Have a great weekend. New Year's Eve is coming up. We might do a little something. I don't think we're going to have a show New Year's Day. Monday, I think we're going to have a regular show. I don't think we're going to have one New Year's Day, though. That might be because we might do something New Year's Eve. So we'll see. I'll let you know. Have a good one, y'all. Take care. I love you, each and every one of you. May not like all of you, but I love you. Behave yourself. 69 views on this video right now. Don't anybody else watch it. Peace. Ho, ho, ho.
This is City Alpha 5. Woo!